Previous winners next to those legends, like what are you talking about? It's just like crazy. Crazy to believe. For there is so many strong, powerful, inspiring women doing really amazing things, and I didn't expect that, to be honest.
Sabalenka is currently tearing through the Madrid Open clay like she has a personal problem with every opponent she faces. 3 titles, world #1, and she still walks into every room like she has something left to prove. That energy, it showed up at the Laureus ceremony in a way nobody fully expected. Then Alex Eala arrived. She did not need to announce herself, the room just knew. She arrived like a queen, and the moment she stepped onto that Laureus red carpet, the fans went completely insane. 20 years old, fresh off a historic US Open run in 2025, representing a country that had never produced a player like her. And then Sabalenka saw her. What happened next is the part that has been living rent-free in tennis Twitter for days.
For there is so many strong, powerful, inspiring women doing really amazing things, and I didn't expect that, to be honest.
Because Sabalenka did not just clap politely, she did not give a professional nod, she goes wild, full stop. There is context to this moment that changes everything. Subscribe before this video goes further, because you are going to want to be here for what comes next. There is context to this moment that changes everything. Sabalenka did not walk into that Laureus ceremony as someone still building toward greatness. That chapter closed a long time ago. She walked in as a 4-time Grand Slam champion who had just spent the better part of 2 years making the rest of the women's tour look like it was playing a different sport. The 2023 Australian Open was where it truly began. She had been knocking on that door for years, and when it finally opened, she did not just step through it, she took the whole frame with her. That title confirmed what her game had been signaling for a long time. Then came the 2023 US Open. Back-to-back slams in the same calendar year. The kind of run that forces even the most skeptical tennis observer to stop using the word potential and start using the word great. She did not stop there. The 2024 Australian Open followed, and at that point the conversation around her shifted completely. 3 Grand Slam titles in under 2 years. The world #1 ranking locked down.
So Emma needs to be in charge. She's old enough to know what she should be doing and surround herself with people and then trust in them.
The tour was not just watching her anymore, it was trying to figure out how to slow her down and coming up largely empty. What made that stretch particularly striking was the consistency of her level across different surfaces, different opponents, and different pressure situations. Grand Slam tennis has a way of exposing whatever weakness a player carries. Sabalenka kept showing up without one. January 2025 brought the Australian Open again, and she treated Melbourne like a home she had never actually left. Her 4th Grand Slam title, her 3rd Australian Open specifically. That is a number that puts her in very specific company in the history of the tournament. The way she moved through that draw was not labored, it was efficient. She found her level early, maintained it through the rounds that matter, and delivered when the final arrived. By the time the trophy ceremony was done, the question was no longer whether she belonged among the all-time greats of her era. The question had moved on entirely to how many more she could add. The Madrid Open in spring 2025 added another layer to the picture. Clay has historically been framed as the surface where Sabalenka is most vulnerable. She is an aggressive baseliner with a game built on pace and power. Clay slows everything down and rewards patience over force. She has never accepted that framing as a ceiling. Her performances on clay in 2025 showed a player who had refined her game without softening it. The aggression was still there. The errors that used to accompany it were not.
Nice to see the welcome that I've had. There's a huge Filipino community here, so I'm so excited.
That combination on a clay court is genuinely difficult to handle, and her opponents in Madrid found that out directly. By the time the Laureus World Sports Awards arrived, she was not attending as a nominee chasing validation.
I mean, that's an honest truth to like getting to the top, is that it takes mental fortitude and not shying away from it, accepting those challenges. And
she was there as the most dominant women's tennis player on the planet at that specific moment in time. The Laureus ceremony draws athletes from every sport imaginable: football, basketball, athletics, swimming. Walking into that room means standing next to people whose names carry weight far beyond their individual disciplines. Sabalenka held her own in that company without any visible effort. She has the kind of presence that does not shrink in unfamiliar environments, and that red carpet was no different from any other high-pressure setting she has walked into. The atmosphere inside that venue was electric in the way that only happens when elite competitors share a space without competition being the reason they are gathered. There is a specific kind of energy that emerges when people who are used to being the best at what they do encounter each other without a scoreboard involved. Sabalenka was fully inside that energy, engaged, present, the kind of focused relaxation that champions develop over years of performing under scrutiny. And then the room shifted. It started outside the venue. A wave of noise that moved inward before anyone inside had a clear view of what was causing it. People who were present that night noted the change before they saw the source of it. That kind of reaction does not come from polite applause or the standard recognition that greets a well-known athlete. It comes from genuine feeling, the uncontrolled kind, the kind that moves through a crowd before the crowd has even decided to produce it. Sabalenka heard it. She looked toward the entrance, and what she saw made her go completely wild. Alex Eala had just walked into the building. The reaction Sabalenka had in that moment was not manufactured for a camera. It was not the polished response of a champion who has learned how to perform warmth in public settings. It was immediate and it was real, and it said more about the current state of women's tennis than any press conference either player has given in the past 12 months. Because Sabalenka does not react that way to things that do not move her. She is emotionally expressive on a tennis court, but in formal settings, she carries herself with a composure that rarely cracks. That composure cracked at the Laureus red carpet the moment Eala arrived like a queen, and the fans went insane around her.
Not for the first time, almost beaten by the lack of pace on serve. So, victory.
What Sabalenka recognized in that moment was not just a talented young player making a glamorous entrance. She recognized a shift, the kind that does not announce itself with a press release or a ranking update. It announces itself in a room full of the world's greatest athletes when a 20-year-old from Manila walks through a door and the energy of the entire space reorganizes itself around her presence. Sabalenka has been the person who causes that reorganization for the past 2 years. She knows exactly what it looks like from the inside. Seeing it happen for someone else, at that scale, on that stage, produced the reaction that has been living in people's heads ever since. That is not a small thing coming from the most dominant player in women's tennis right now. That is a signal, and signals from players at Sabalenka's level are worth paying attention to. That signal did not come from nowhere. To understand why Eala walking into that Laureus red carpet produced the reaction it did, you have to understand what she had already done before she got there. Not years ago, months ago.
We can be on it again in affirming the right of women and girls to sex-based spaces.
The 2025 US Open Final is the starting point for this specific conversation, because that result is what transformed her from a name that serious tennis followers knew into a name that the entire sport had to reckon with. Reaching a Grand Slam final at 20 years old is remarkable for any player from any country. For a Filipino player, it was something the sport had never seen before, and the weight of that context was sitting on her shoulders through every single match of that tournament. She did not buckle under it. That is the part that separated the 2025 US Open from every other milestone in her career up to that point. Junior titles at Roland Garros in 2022 showed her talent. Her development at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca showed her commitment to building a game that could compete at the highest level. But a Grand Slam final is a different test entirely. The opponents get harder, the stakes get louder, the margin for error shrinks to almost nothing. Eala moved through that draw with a maturity that had no business existing in someone her age, and when she stepped onto the court for the final, the Philippines stopped what it was doing and watched. The country's response to that run was not a sports story, it was a cultural one. Tennis does not have the same mass following in the Philippines that basketball does. It has never produced a player who competed at this level before Eala arrived.
Of course, we have to mention Alex Eala, the incredible fandom coming, across the globe, especially from the Filipino community. So,
what she did at the 2025 US Open cut across every demographic and every level of tennis awareness in the country. People who had never tracked a WTA result in their lives were following her scores in real time. That kind of national investment in a single athlete is rare, and it does not disappear when the tournament ends. It travels with the player into every public moment that follows. It traveled with Eala directly onto that Laureus red carpet. Her path to that point had been built deliberately. The decision to train at the Rafa Nadal Academy as a young teenager.
Next tournament, I think, was a age group tournament. Yeah, I also lost. It did feel.
Was not a conventional one for a Filipino athlete. It required leaving home, adapting to a completely different environment, and competing daily against players developed inside elite European tennis infrastructure their entire lives. Eala found her footing and used it to build a game with genuine weapons across the entire court. Her ground strokes generate real pace.
Alex is someone I get along very well with, obviously against an opponent that was, playing on a high level, so I'm glad to overcome it.
Her movement has improved steadily. Her mental game, which was always her least discussed quality, turned out to be the most important one. Roland Garros 2022 was the moment the wider tennis community first took serious notice. Winning the girls' singles title at a Grand Slam told the tour that Eala was not a player who would need years of senior experience before she became dangerous. The transition from junior to senior tennis is where most highly rated prospects lose their way. Eala handled that transition better than almost anyone who watched her junior results would have predicted. By the time the Laureus ceremony arrived, she had earned every single second of what was about to happen on that red carpet. Filipino fan communities had been tracking her career with extraordinary intensity for years, and this was the biggest stage she had ever appeared on outside of a tennis court. The noise that started outside and moved inward was not manufactured. It was the product of years of investment from people who had waited for a moment exactly like this one, to arrive on a platform where the rest of the world would have no choice but to notice. When Eala stepped onto that Laureus red carpet, she arrived like a queen. She did not rush. She did not perform excitement or nerves or any of the other reactions that would have been understandable given the scale of the moment. She moved through that entrance with a composure that mirrored exactly what she had shown on court at the US Open just months earlier.
Does really well, and I think there's a lot of things that make her opponents feel very uncomfortable.
That consistency between her on-court presence and her off-court presence is one of the things that makes her genuinely compelling beyond her results. The fans went insane, and they had every reason to. The social media response within the first hour was unlike anything a WTA player outside the very top tier had generated at a non-tennis event in recent memory. Tennis Twitter does not typically unify around a single moment. That night, it did. The clips circulated across platforms and reached audiences who had no prior relationship with women's tennis at all. That kind of organic reach cannot be engineered by a PR team. It comes from a genuine moment that resonates beyond the sport it originates from.
It felt great. I think the intensity was really high throughout the whole match, so I'm really happy to have.
What the Laureus red carpet ultimately captured was the exact point where two distinct eras of women's tennis occupied the same physical space. Sabalenka goes wild because she is not just watching a young player make a glamorous entrance. She is watching the next serious chapter of the sport she has spent 3 years dominating announce itself in real time. She handled it with a generosity that said something real about her character, and that reaction became the moment everyone remembered from that entire evening. The tour is going to keep putting these two in the same spaces. These two players are going to share courts as well as carpets, and when they do, the storyline that started at that Laureus entrance is going to arrive at the confrontation it has been building toward. A Sabalenka versus Eala match at a Grand Slam, with everything both of them represent sitting on top of the result, is the kind of tennis moment the sport only produces once in a long while. That match has not happened yet. The story has already started, and you are watching it from the beginning. Subscribe to the channel right now if you want to be here when it reaches its next chapter. Hit the notification bell, because when these two finally meet across a net with something real at stake, You are going to want to have been following this from the moment it began.